21-year-old truck with 276,000 miles.
Okay. It's
I love control.
Old age.
Is that your old truck?
Impressive.
No,
76 is really impressive.
yeah, I bought it.
start.
Bought it, it only had 2 digits on it.
Yeah, we're good. And
Yeah,
the camera is from here, by the way, even though it doesn't, you can't see it, but what people are seeing is us,
Okay,
just FYI.
okay, great. Go ahead and call to order the City of Sherwood Planning Commission meeting for November 8th. You don't need a roll call, because we are here and no quorum needed. So Erica, you are up with our development code update discussion.
So, just a couple announcements before I get started on the development code update. I know that during our planning commission training, last week, we talked about providing tips to the public on how to testify at the planning commission. So we're working on this handy dandy little tool here, that will give people tips and tricks on how to provide testimony. And we're also working on a video as well. So you
Nice.
can watch a little video and learn how to prepare. At our last work session, we talked about making some amendments to our tree code and developing maybe a new program for heritage trees. I just want to say that amendment package will not be included as part of this amendment package because it's a little bit more substantive with those changes, but we are going to be preparing something for next year. So I just want everybody to know about that.
On the preparation packet, if people want to testify, is there any way we can shrink it down and get it to be able to put the high points on the back of the blue sheet? So on the back of the blue sheet, they can read on the back of the blue sheet, send it and turn it in.
So
I'm just trying to.
no, that's a great question. So yes, we're going to be updating that blue sheet and making it a little bit more user friendly.
Trying to get costs down too. If you get it one paper to do everything. Here, testify, then here's how to testify.
Flyer, that'd be on the website. So
This will be on the website.
So everybody.
We'll also have it at the library for people to pick up.
Yeah, just a couple. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and then also, I want to let you know that one of the amendments that had to do with the climate friendly equitable communities work, which was that updated parking standard. So it was one parking space per dwelling unit. We have right now we have pulled that amendment from this amendment package. We're having a conversation with your city attorney since we're kind of in a little litigation. So we're deciding how to move forward with that, and I'll let the commission know in the next couple of weeks how that's going to move forward.
I thought there was something to do with part of this didn't apply if you had less than 25,000 people also.
Yes, and so those standards kick in next year in 2023. And Joy is preparing a little white paper about all those issues, about what Sherwood would need to adopt and when, based on our population size and the years that DLC has called out for implementation.
So there are, sans the litigation, things that we are subject to under the CFEC,
Yes,
irregardless of size.
regardless of size.
Okay, so,
Yep.
but we're currently not reviewing it because of the litigation, so it's just been taken out of our package.
Right.
So I might be confusing this with something else, but wasn't there something where you were subject to certain criteria for standards if you're over 25,000 or if you're within metro? What am I thinking of?
Nope, you're exactly right.
Is that the same thing?
That's the same thing.
Okay,
So there's kind of two different sets of criteria.
so since we're under 25,000, are we still subject to those parameters if we were over 25,000?
I am not the expert right now. And so we're gonna have something to you here in the next couple of weeks. Joy's been working on sorting everything out, and figuring out what the city has to adopt and when, and what the exact rules are.
It's a good question though. I know for the middle housing, I think it was set up that way where we didn't trigger it based on population, but we triggered it by.
Because we
feet.
were metro.
Exactly, yeah. So I don't know if it's the same. But I don't know if it's the same for this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I was thinking of initially, but
And when are you expecting this to go to hearing officially? What the code we're doing, is it?
The code amendments that we are looking at tonight, this code package. After tonight, if we don't have any like major changes, I'm gonna be noticing DLCD for the 35-day notice. And then we are looking at probably a first public hearing in January.
And so would you notice it with the CFEC stuff in it just in case? Or
We may or may not, I'll get direction from the city attorney, I'm thinking probably this week or next week.
Okay. And then what about the addition, the last thing I had that's not part of the actual printout was the addition of multi-family design standards. We kind of, wasn't at the last meeting, but the meeting before, I asked that we look at where multi-family design standards are and can be implemented, because they're treated kind of like commercial, but they're residential to
Right,
most people.
so, I can provide more information to the commission in December about this. Multifamily is treated, we have a design matrix in the code.
Correct, but that design matrix, I would like to make sure that the commission looks at it and says, if an apartment were coming in and we're using the commercial design standards and applying it to multifamily housing, I would think multifamily housing would be more like townhouse design standards or something, so I'd like to make sure that we would know what the commercial standards are that are gonna be applied to multifamily.
We'll get something to you that explains it all. Perfect.
Are you thinking, Chair Simpson, that we would potentially update the multifamily standards if you guys didn't like them or thought they needed to be changed, or what's the sort of purpose of bringing this to you?
Because if the commercial design standards don't have the same end result as what we're doing with some of our other
I see, I got
housing standards,
Okay.
then we should look at it, because if we're applying commercial building standards, I don't think it treats the sides of the buildings the same, so we could have an apartment complex that has a very large blank wall on the side, on a corner lot, and I think that could be counterproductive to what we've been trying to do in residential design standards, which is making the front street facing frontages, look and feel like rural Sherwood looks and feels.
Okay.
So the answer is yes, if they don't get the same result as our rest of the residential design standards.
Okay, yeah,
Yep.
gotcha.
All right, I think we can get through these pretty quickly. I don't know how you feel about it. So, let's actually start just on package page 8, which is definitions. And so we have added definitions, for the psilocybin products and model home
So
and psilocybin service centers. And this is because, Jean, you weren't at our last work session. So ballot measure 109,
yeah, I got the psilocybin, I just haven't
yeah,
edit on the
Okay.
homes. Because we use it later in the actual code, model home is a structure constructed as and intended to be occupied as a residential dwelling unit that is temporarily used as a sales office, inserting that, and or an example of the type of residential dwelling unit. The the phrase sales office needs to be in the definition because that's what we use later in the code because we allow it to use it as sales office.
That's great.
And I got the whole psilocybin product
Okay.
thing, except if, when it comes,
Yeah,
So last time I was asking about, should we mention psilocybin or just psilocybin products as well? Because marijuana, I think, has both marijuana and marijuana products. Like is psilocybin a thing in and of itself, or is it always a product, I guess is the thing. So, compounding, conversion, or processing of psilocybin or a psilocybin product. I think marijuana read that way.
oh, in the definition section?
Yeah,
yes.
it was whatever we looked at last time,
Okay.
yeah. It seems like maybe a nuance, but I don't know enough about it to know for sure.
I'll take a look.
So,
So, it's like,
yeah. Because I don't know if a product means it's processed into something that can be administered.
It's not as bad as the old city.
Raw, just raw.
I don't know anything about it, it's fine.
Right? This is all those mushrooms, right? In a sense, some of the mushrooms.
That's it.
Yeah, so a lot of products of mushroom, how, yeah, good one.
yes, there's a lot of communities that are banning this so much. Surprised that we didn't.
The way the law is written,
I don't know.
it's not, it just wasn't, I mean, the fact that just, no, I'm sorry.
No.
Let's go forward, let's go forward.
Let's go for
Just start.
PUD.
Beauty, back to page 10. So we decided to include private alleyways when designed and constructed to public alleyway standards in TSP as a use.
Had the changes on this attachment.
Do we need to spell out TSP at this point? How long has it been since we defined it?
So we don't have to call, we don't have to call out the TSP, we can just say,
Well, I mean, just you define the three letters.
Can you say, and the city's transportation system plan?
Yeah.
That's good. Good call.
Then you can put it in brackets, TSP right behind it.
Unless the acronym's already defined somewhere.
Yeah, recently, exactly, in the last couple of pages.
that's fine. And then we called out on the next page, the plat clearly shows an easement width of 20 to 22 feet for private trails if proposed. And that was because, we decided we didn't have a trail like easement width. So we decided to call it out to make sure that all of our trail easement widths are consistent in new development.
Can I ask about the spread?
So that's what our TSP calls for in our local trails.
And I apologize, Eric, I didn't have time to really look at this before about an hour ago. So the discussion, I think that we had last time, I'm wondering if a few clarifications on this. If there would be trails that are private or that we want captured by this, but are not that lowest threshold. I think it's probably pretty rare, but if we get a big PUD, for example, and they want to put in like a non-feeder trail, then it would need to be larger, right? 20 to 22. So I'm wondering if we could just have language that says that
Or
the
otherwise.
trails basically match, because the only intent was if it was privately maintained, that we would want to apply our public standards to it. So really, I think it could be as simple as like trails, privately maintained trails that are available for public use shall conform to the public trail standards in TSP. And then it sort of goes based on the use of the trail as opposed to just a
Mhm.
20 to 22 at all times, basically.
That the standard changes in the TSP, we're not having to change numbers.
That's
Right. And then the distinction is, the way I read this as well would be if it was just straight up private, no public access, but we want to capture really the intent was the trails that are privately maintained, but accessible to the public. So I don't know if we want to apply it to private trails as just straight up private trails as well. Those are pretty rare in the city. It's rare that they'd be totally restricted, so. But yeah. maybe-
Yeah, I think that's probably better language.
Anybody else have feedback on that?
I
Does
like,
that kind of get to?
I like,
to the
yeah, it
other
seemed
points
overly
as
like
well?
specific and I didn't quite get why. That was-
Yeah.
Take a sentence, use a period.
Yep.
Yeah. I have a few things like that.
Manufactured homes. So our manufactured home chapter was not clear and objective for manufactured home. Their design elements. And we talked about if manufactured home should meet the design standards contained in chapter 16.14, which is our new residential design standards. And I think we came to the conclusion that they should. So it has been, this chapter has been updated to reflect that.
Can I ask a weird question? What do these little 3 asterisks stand for?
Oh, yeah.
Bottom, and they're like literally the top and bottom of the pages.
So it just means that the rest of the code hasn't changed
Oh, okay.
after that.
Someone's for that section or
So
something.
that's.
Someone's currently texting us.
Yeah.
It's in process.
Yeah, it's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. Not that done.
Maybe not. I might erase it.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, good.
No,
Yeah.
great question. That's come up before too.
That's it.
Dual use, hitch, keyboards, not hands. Except as otherwise provided in a lot of areas, setbacks, yards, landscape area, or open space shall be considered.
Got it?
Comment or exactly comment. No comment.
Where was that?
C, unless. Space,
Space.
or no comment, I don't think you need a comment, it's up to you guys.
All right, general provisions, neighborhood meetings. So we always get asked from folks, when do I need to send out a neighborhood notice to people? And we didn't have a clear standard in our code. And we thought it would probably be better to have a clear standard in our code, so people aren't mailing the notice 2 days prior to a neighborhood meeting and expecting people to show up. So, we added a notification, standard in here, letting folks know that, a neighborhood meeting needs to be mailed 14 days prior to the meeting date.
I hate to ask this, it's a calendar. I know, because I do this all the time.
Yeah.
Typically, we say, typically we say calendar days, but we can make it specific in here, 14 calendar days.
It's sure enough, something's gonna end.
I don't think our code specifies it everywhere, but.
It doesn't.
Yeah, so it's generally
Yeah,
So
kept.
generally, internally, we always say calendar days.
Yeah,
Because it just says days, what it is days, right? That's what I was,
I mean, in some
but it's good to
cases, like,
specify. Yeah,
But, yeah,
yeah. it's good. You have a period on comment, by the way. Sorry, I told you.
no.
And the same thing happened on the next one too.
It's,
Oh, yeah.
it's called,
I know.
well,
tracker.
when you do the track changes,
When
it's
you
hard,
do the
it's
track
hard.
changes, it's so hard.
Does our, this code publishing do a courtesy like spell
Yes,
check?
yes,
So
yeah.
just so you know, when we, before we publish it, our
It's a
publisher,
change on this, you know, probably from the column to a period.
Yeah.
Maybe.
But you can reword, you can view the final format too. When I do a lot of
Right,
edits,
right,
I'll
turn
I'll
it
type
off.
it in the final
Yeah.
format, just so
Turn
I
it
can
off.
see the final, and then I'll
Yeah.
turn back on track changes.
yeah.
Right.
All right. Packet page 16, procedures for processing development permit. We just made it clear that residential multi-land use applications are, they don't have to go through the conditional use criteria. Sorry, conditional use criteria is not clear and objective.
Okay, got it. Kind of fun, yeah.
Variances. Yep. 10 to 5, 20 to 10, if we repeat that one to that here. Temporary uses. We added model homes in the model home procedure. Anyone have any thoughts about that?
I have a couple big thoughts.
Yep.
First, the easy one is 3 of 5. And this, I think, was raised earlier, is that we're putting the definition back in the code. The section permits the construction, and then it describes what a model home is, and this thing should probably. Model homes are sometimes built as show examples. I think we just need to revisit that last sentence, because it's the definition again.
Where are we at?
Packet page 22. There's this section.
Yep.
So I think that's in the definition. And then my concern was in this page, on page 22, item 2 talks about time limits, and it very clearly states that shall not be issued exceeding 1 year. Then when we turn the page and go to page 24, it says model homes are valid for 2 years on item 3, so we have a conflict
Extension option.
with an extension option. I think that is. Shall not be issued for a period exceeding 1 year. It clearly states model homes do not exceed 1 year, and then we say shall be discontinued after 2 years.
Here's our, 24 is our 2 year.
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
item 3.
Mhm.
3, okay.
And number 2A.
Oh, I see. So what's happening is, yeah, the
So what we could do is move to A. So on page 22, under B, we can call out a special renewal for model homes and place it there. Unless we want the model home to have the same standard.
We could say temporary sales. Well, that's a problem, because model homes could be used as a sales office.
Why is it 2 years? Why not 3 or 1? What was the thinking? Is it just because it can take subdivision folks a while to sell these things? Sell out, and use many extensions, that kind of idea?
2 years is kind of a stand. And I see the 2 or 1 on an expiration date for a decision, but yes, subdivision plats valid for 2 years.
What about construction offices and construction trailers? So then why wouldn't they be for 2 years?
Yeah.
Maybe just make them all 2 years. That's kind of industry norm.
So I can call out model homes,
Temporary construction offices and trailers shall not be issued a period for 1 year. Then you can create a C that says
that's what I'm thinking.
model homes and residential sales. See, that's a problem, the sales offices, temporary sales offices. I don't know,
What did you say model homes with?
or with or without.
Yeah,
Because you do that
Model-
somewhere else.
Well, model homes are defined as sales offices or samples, so just by saying model homes, you're saying model homes in whatever nature they are.
yeah.
Can be up to 2 years. Sales offices, construction offices, and construction trailers are 1 year with a provision for an extension.
Yep.
I guess, I don't know, I really don't care if they were all 2 years either, because. But how? I was trying to think, industrial or construction, if we got industrial coming in Tonquin area, is it? Or even the one that's on Oregon Street, do we think there's gonna be a construction trailer up there for 2 years? While they're building all those 2
It very well could be.
Does it harm anything if we just give them 2 years? Or we,
So we can,
I don't,
both two, actually, I'd be here in terms of the extensions. So other,
I mean, a shorter time frame also kind of puts the incentive on developers to get the project done and sold. We don't want it sitting around looking weird for years and years
that's true.
either, right? But we should, if we do that, though, we should allow for some kind of extension option, subject to review or something.
so so the second sentence in A says the applicant may request a renewal for additional time to allow completion of the project, provided that they provide a narrative describing why. I know for sure we've issued those before, so construction trailers, I think you were just getting to this, the large site plan sites that we approve. Yeah, those sites take longer than a year at times, and to be frank, we issue this one permit and they probably don't come back. Some of them do, rarely they do that for over a year, so they kind of just remove the trailer once the project is done. We don't have a great enforcement mechanism, but I almost think we just say 1 year and then give the extension, if the model home or whatever needs an extension, we can just grant it. Just omit its time limit on page 24. Would that work? Because then we just have one, because what's happening is we have a time limit for temporary uses at large, and it's mentioning all these specific temporary uses. And then when we go into model homes, that has a separate one. So it seems like we just pull out the model home time limit.
What's the starting, these both have different starting points. One is, the first one is when a temporary use permit is issued. And then the next, the one on page 24 is from the final plat recording. Is there a difference in timing between those things? Maybe they kind of line up at the end anyway.
They're two things.
Yeah.
So construction, I feel like a big residential development, they need it's gonna be 2 years. You're gonna have to, renewal. But I don't know how often you guys have model homes. Is this just gearing up for future development?
Kind of gearing up, and we've had them before in the past, we haven't had any new standards in our codes, so we've had some internal policy that we've been using.
Was it an issue that hung around too long?
No,
The model home, I think, was wanting to use it, but our code didn't allow it because you had to have water, and you don't have water, you're doing a model home. It
was a little gray area, so we had some internal policies with engineering on how we could allow it, so we just wanted to codify some standards.
For sure, West becomes a.
So it's like you could get a 1-year renewal, but you can't exceed 2.
Yeah,
Maybe that's so.
It's not everything's
Maybe
fixed, so
that's the bottom line, it's like, you gotta come in for your extra year, but then you can't exceed 2.
The way it's written now is it's 2 years with an extended third year.
Well, yeah, so the A is covering these specific uses. And then really in my read, there's no time limit for A. We can just grant an extension as needed to finish the project. And then under B, it says for other temporary uses, we issue it for 1 year, and that's where the 3-year comes in. It's kind of all over the place, actually, these time limits, our current code.
I like your last suggestion, which is just remove number 3, which is the conflict.
It's on page 24. Yeah, it is.
yeah.
Last one.
As long as 2.8 is essentially the same thing. I mean, not every subdivision is a huge big one that takes years and years. There's small ones too, but I mean, I think from the point at which they can start building, and you need to have an office out there, the clock should tick. 1 year seems reasonable with a possible extension.
Yeah.
That seems reasonable to me. For the big guys, gals,
Yeah, I mean,
then you come in and get extensions.
and really probably what we would do is just say, we'll give you the extension until you're done with the project and try and get it back in date, for the this case, so that's what we do with the site plans. We basically just put a, here's your temporary use for your trailer and a condition that they remove it when the project's done. Okay, cool.
Just a question on, we're prohibiting water meters, so how do the model homes pay for water? Then how does that work?
It's L.
Or L, is that L? Oh, yeah, sorry. Reading this account.
There's no running water in that model.
Even if they have offices in there sometimes? I've walked in model homes.
Yeah, we had this discussion, there, like porta potties deployed for the model homes.
We had this discussion.
So we are saying that water meter connection for a model home is prohibited unless all public improvements required by the subdivision have been constructed, inspected, and accepted by city engineering.
Unless,
Yeah.
That was the change, right?
okay.
And then we said a water meter must be installed upon converting the model home to the intended use as a residential.
Paragraph underneath is indicated.
I had a question on approval criteria 1A, just a question. So it had to previously have a residential home. Prior to time plat recording, one model home can be constructed for legal lot of record if the lot had a previous residential home.
Yes, so this is like our current standard now. Great question.
I mean, it just
This is
seems like if you just have raw land that never had a house, but now you're subdividing, and you want to put. I don't know, because, oh, it makes sense, so you
No,
can.
the issue here is addressing. And so if the.
Okay, but that's not how. Sorry, I just don't, I mean, I don't have a big
No,
heartburn over it, it just doesn't make sense.
I agree, and our building, we've had this conversation with building,
Because they won't have, I won't have an address.
correct?
I think I have a related, it seems like this is gonna be the big one, this code, I think it's related, I wasn't quite sure if they could take advantage of both of these situations, A, where you get one, model home per legal lot of record. And then when you get down to, I think maybe an indentation issue here, I'm not quite sure, it's like small I or 1 through 3. Is that intended to be under H? And then it starts talking about the number of model homes that you can have based on the size of the subdivision. So I wasn't sure if this was intended like after plats, then they have all their lots, and then we get around the addressing issue.
Yep.
That's what it's intended for. Okay, so this is not intended to apply before the plat records.
Right.
Okay, so after the plat records, they can take advantage of this 1 through 4.
Mhm.
I'm not sure it's.
Yeah, we might want to clarify. Title. It does, I'm not sure 1 through 3 goes with age. Does it? Just-
No,
No, it should be its own.
that should be its own.
Okay, so yeah, we just make that its own and then maybe clarify, how many they can get. I think it's just a straight read right now. There's a conflict with between A and then the 1 through 3. about how many.
So we can make it clear after plat recording, so that I should be on its own,
It should be
Wait.
I.
H,
and then,
yep.
There's no I right now, it just goes from H
Oh,
to
that's
J.
That's what- and something weird happened, yeah.
something, yeah,
Okay.
I love track changes.
And then the end of that line where it says between 1 and 10, that should be the subset of I.
Yes,
That should
Yep.
be,
Right, yep, I see what happened. Between, I see follows in between. There. Yeah, I got
that
you. Okay.
becomes,
Yep,
that
Got
becomes the next
Okay.
endpoint.
And I just had a question on J. If more than one model home is proposed, lots on which the mobile homes are to be located shall be contiguous to one another and within the same platted phase of development. So you have 3 phases. You want more than one mobile home. Does each phase get more than, is this trying to get to say each phase gets more than one as long as they're contiguous.
Yes,
No.
so,
And I think I know what it's saying, but it's a little, I just caught it.
so we're saying that if you're asking for more than one model home, in each phase, it needs to be contiguous.
The way I'm reading this, if I do 3 phases, I could put 3 model homes on each phase as long as each of the 3 were contiguous on the phase. So I'd have 1 phase, 2 phase, 3 phase. I could put 3 in this corner, 3 in this corner, and 3 in this corner because they're contiguous lots per phase.
Correct,
Okay.
you got it.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I
just
see your
wanted to be
confusion
clear.
now.
It's just,
Yeah,
Yeah, make sure it's not
We can work on that
just one
language.
phase that they
That's
put
what
it
it
in.
looks
Yeah,
like.
yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
I got you, yeah. So maybe just clarify the
Yeah,
language
it's
there.
just needs to be.
Or nitpick, and we want the super space between set and forth.
Oh,
Super space.
Super space.
Super space.
The problem with super space is it looks like something longer than it is.
Right, back to page 26, site planning. So this actually, so we talked about looking and changing about or modifying the industrial design standards. And so staff has proposed just making all roof mounted equipment needs to be screened as a set condition. And then folks, instead of having 6 design criteria to choose from, you would have 5.
Could add a 6th one, which is the entrance be articulated. At a focal point. If that's not already in design criteria. Because having the entrance be pedestrian friendly and articulated and make that sound official, like. Then we still have 6 criteria, and they're picking 4 out of 6 instead of 4 out of 5.
Do that?
I don't know.
That sounds good to me.
I don't know what it's gonna look like, I don't know if they're still gonna pick,
I think it would work.
I think it would work.
but that means they might be picking something that makes their front entrance look nice, which is, kind of the goal of design
It's
criteria.
not required anywhere.
No,
You want a big 30-foot concrete wall like they have on 12th and Shirley Road down there?
That's a, move. I was looking at their zoning code, it's like a setback, or I never look at it in detail, but I think, their code requires it to be, it was a setback overlay zone, it requires them to bring building up to the street frontage.
Yeah, so that's the
Yeah.
design, that's.
I think it'll look better, once the road gets done and everything, but, plants grow up. Yeah, it's a little,
20-year-old trees get rebuilt with little tiny twigs.
yeah,
See, that's the one thing that we have when the parking is located to the side of the rear of the building, then we are pushing the building to the front of the street, that's what we're doing here. But then if they don't pick that one, then we're asking them to put window glazing and front doors. Yeah, this says minimum of 2 building materials, so we don't have anything else in the code that says articulation on the
Not for
front
that,
entrance.
no.
Not for industrial.
for commercial residential.
Yeah, but that would help.
I think it's a good approach to bring in a 6 here, or another 6. And have it be related to the building design, because I think kind of what you were just saying is that without it, it forces them into one of these other 2, setback or parking. And that's more of the site design stuff, so it gives them it gives them more flexibility in overall site design, location of the building, and another option to hit the 4 out of the 6 with a just straight up building design
Yeah.
approach, so,
Having front door.
yeah, I think that helps with some options, yeah.
Yes, wish you guys knew Bill Lightman. He was planning commissioner when I first started, and when Target came in, it was going to be like the Target in Hillsborough, or not Hillsborough. Beaverton, that's the concrete tilt-up sides, do you know what I'm talking about? It's right there on Beaverton Hillsdale, and it's just straight white concrete tilt up, and that's the first building design we saw for the Target in Sherwood with the loading docks where the Red Robin is. That's the that was the site plan, that was the site plan when it came to us, was tilt up with the loading docks. I was going on vacation and I typed in and said, I think the building's facing the wrong direction, that's the back of the building facing our community. I go off to Hawaii, I come back 2 weeks later, and the hearings continued, the application's been pulled, and they redesigned the site plan so the Target was facing the right direction. And so when the hearing came to us, the real hearing came to us, Bill White looks at me and he says, I think we need some eye candy. Have you seen that Target down there in Wilsonville? It's got all those rocks up front.
And that's how we got
And that's how we got, I don't know about the balls out front, the big,
yeah.
but we were gonna get concrete, flat face concrete at the beginning of that project. Facing, with loading docks facing Red Robin,
So what was the front of it facing?
facing the parking lot, facing Langer Farms Parkway, because that road didn't exist. It was going to be, side of the building was on Tualatin Sherwood Road, with the loading docks facing Tualatin and the front door facing towards West Schwab, like on the side of the building.
Yeah.
That was the when it first came in, that's what it was, that was.
Yikes. But good job. Good job.
Yeah,
Good job.
okay,
Yeah.
so
So front
we'll
door
add something about articulation to the front entrance there.
On-site circulation.
On-site circulation,
I understand the purpose statement doesn't mean anything to the hearings officer, but it means something to me. And so I think the first sentence should be the last sentence. The purpose statement is all new development except single family detached shall provide a continuous system of private pathways and sidewalks. That's the purpose statement.
so the last sentence needs to become the first sentence.
And the next sentence doesn't need to be there at all because it's a repeat of that sentence, the thought is. Because the sentence that's there right now tries to name out commercial, industrial, mixed use, blah, 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 blah. So I say move the last sentence to the first sentence and
Yeah,
get rid of the
just delete the
first sentence.
second one, sure.
Yeah,
Development. Sorry, except single family detached. System. Okay,
Then it just, the next
Okay.
sentence would be the on-site
the
facilities
on-site
shall.
facilities shall.
The
Yeah.
reason we pulled all this stuff out and named it all out was because we wanted to be sure that it captured industrial. Sometimes we go back and forth with developers about whether or not these apply to industrial, so that's why we called it out. But if we say all
But if we
new
see all new
development,
development,
Yeah.
except, I think it captures it.
and it's clear and concise. I didn't have everything else on. I hope all other things. Do you have any comments on?
31, page 31?
Yes.
Yes.
Questions? So, excuse me if you guys talked about this before, minimum residential vehicle circulation standards. By A1 driveways, or A driveways, one, it's single family detached, but we have the word ADU at the beginning, which is confusing. My statement would be single family detached with or without ADU,
Mm,
because that becomes the driveway standard, one driveway for a single family residence.
yeah, I think we definitely get someone that says ADU one, you know, right.
And then cottage clusters are not identified in here at all.
Let me take a look at that. I think it's because cottage clusters we have their own circulation standards within that. But I'll double check.
But in other areas where we have cottage
can
clusters,
refer-
we reference that particular code. And then what are the vehicle circulation standards for mixed use? Do we apply residential or do we apply commercial? Because it's not define in here, mixed use?
Mixed use, we typically will do commercial. So,
I mean, it doesn't say that, it's just, that's usually.
It doesn't say it, but
Yeah, it could benefit.
mhm.
Is that what we want, commercial?
I don't have an opinion, I just worry, if I were looking at this, I have mixed use. I don't wanna, you know, I'd like clarity in the code.
I think
Yeah, so minimum non-resident, yeah.
it would likely be under the non-residential, because we're thinking about if it's mixed use, you're kind of planning for the worst case scenario, so drive aisles and driveways, you know, you're picturing trucks to get into a commercial or, you know, really be commercial with residential. So you want to be planning for sort of larger vehicles, so we would apply the commercial. Or the minimum non-residential, but we need to clarify that.
Yeah, we can say
Yeah.
commercial, we can say commercial and mixed use. I think that's fine. Under A1,
Commercial and mixed use, yeah, that's fine.
Yep.
Actually, they kind of look like they're the same, but it just,
Just, yeah, let's always get to be specific on things that helps. Yep.
Yep.
Duplexes that you, we allow 2 driveways. Each 10 minutes, they have a separation requirement between the 2, or do they? I'm struggling, so you get 1 shared driveway, or that's 20, or you could have 2 driveways that are 10, is there a minimum separation requirement between those 2?
it matters. That's a good
I don't know, I
question.
mean, like something, I don't know, like, or are you thinking this is like,
Oh, this code drives me crazy, but, so if you see the standard right below 050, or some minimum residential vehicle circulation standards, it's really weird because right below that, it says minimum standards for private on-site vehicle circulation improvements.
I disagree with that.
That's
Not
kind
really
of,
sure.
I know, that's kind of confusing. So I'm always like, are we talking drive aisles or driveways? But it seems like when you get it, it's actually referring to driveways.
Yeah, if it's not, I was confused.
Yeah, and if that's the case, if it's actually referring to driveways, our code, you know, we have like a vehicle access management, you know, code section, that does not have a minimum spacing standard between residential driveways. That's not in
No,
there.
well, I thought the I thought we talked about that so that between 2 spaces, they wouldn't,
Yeah, we did.
there would be a width to park a car.
Need like 20 feet, I think it would be some.
Something like that, yeah.
we did in the residential design standards and the housing options.
So if we're talking, that's a good vehicle on-site circulation, so if you're talking single family, what on-site circulation do you have?
I don't know.
Yeah, there's
I don't know what that
That's
statement.
why the clip's just not really clear, but it seems like we're actually talking the driveway, the connection from the
Driveway.
street
Public.
into the site, right?
But we have driveway in a different section, but I see what you're saying. Very,
Yeah. Where else do we cover driveways?
maybe that,
We cover driveways in the new residential, like housing choices
Gotcha.
sections.
Okay.
so maybe single family, duplex, triplex. Maybe some of these, we would just say C section something, instead of creating a new code for it.
Yeah, I don't know what those are.
So when we did residential design standards, one of the things with duplexes and quads was they either needed to share a driveway or make the driveways on opposite ends, so parking could happen in between it. And so by doing this, we're creating conflict. Or
So we
Not
have,
clarity.
so triplex and quadplexes, we have the new provisions, we direct people to those new provisions. For townhomes, we say see the provisions of the townhome chapter. Now, for driveway width for single family detached with or without ADUs, we didn't.
You wanna just double check and
I
get
don't-
back to us?
Yeah, I'll double check. I think,
And we just want to make sure it's not a conflict
yeah,
there.
yeah, and I don't think there is a conflict, because I asked Joyce specifically to go back and take a look. And,
But if you, but there is a conflict on duplex, because this doesn't require the spacing standards, so.
You might be able to say 2 driveways consistent with blah, blah, blah section or something. I don't know what it says.
okay,
Maybe some-
I'll take a look.
Tie it back so it was figured out.
Does it conflict if this is silent but the other section is not? I mean, as long as it isn't directly, code or say something different.
Right.
I mean, it's not clear, which is the
Yeah, we
problem.
want
It should
to-
be.
We want to talk to each other, but yeah.
This isn't where somebody's going to find clarity in the code, this section would be looking at the driveway specifically, right?
What's that?
They wouldn't be going to this section to find clarity on the driveway.
Oh, gosh, you never know. I mean, that's the problems with code. They're so long that, and if you're not on staff, basically, you start searching and you're like, here it is,
There's
but
driveway.
then you gotta find the other one too, which is what we're trying to
That's not
avoid.
good.
yeah, so we'll take a look at those sections and just make sure that they're consistent with one another. In regards to spacing, because I think the spacing almost had to do with the parking plan.
Don't know,
Yeah, but we'll take a look.
in my mind, if there's if they're building a duplex anyplace, and you wouldn't have a parking plan for a single family residence, so you wouldn't have a parking plan for a single duplex. But our residential design standards should point you to the design standards that say shared driveway
Sure.
or space out for parking efficiency.
Just thinking if it's a duplex is gonna be on a single lot and the width is gonna be anywhere between 30 feet, so the minimum is 25 feet, lot width at front property line. So a minimum of 25 all the way up to maybe like 80s, a pretty wide frontage, but let's say average is 50. And you have 20-foot driveway, 30 feet. I'm just trying to think if you even have space for a parking stall in front of a lot. You have 2 driveways, right? If you're trying to separate them and get something in between.
You have
trying to
15
think
feet.
if you even have
Yeah,
that.
you have 25 feet, you have 10 feet on either side. If they're on the property line, then you've got 15 feet in the middle, which is a single parking space, a compact parking space.
Yeah, we're probably 20. When we're doing parallel parking, things like 20 is really what we go for.
Right, but if we put it right both in the middle, we got eight, we got absolutely
And
nothing.
nothing.
If we put them, if we space them and we got a chance
Yeah,
of a
right.
space.
Okay.
When they're taking away parking spaces from us, we're trying to optimize what we can.
Yeah, right, understood, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I want to make sure we don't have a code provision that basically prohibits construction of a duplex based on, the curb standards, so.
Yeah. Or space as much as you can so that you can park in front of your
That's
And that-
halfway in front of your
and that
driveway,
standard-
down the street, and you're blocking yourself, not another person.
So that standard would have 20 feet in between 2, but is it stated so that it's basically 20 feet in between any driveway?
No, so we don't have spacing standards between driveways.
This would just be for middle housing.
This would
types,
just, yeah,
Middle housing types.
Plus, you can't control what someone else does on that lot.
Well, but if it's like in a subdivision, isn't that what we're kind of thinking about? Like, I'm just thinking that.
so within the subdivision, we have called out a parking management plan that actually shows the on-street parking spaces that they're maximizing.
Okay,
So in a subdivision, there's a parking plan, but
Okay.
if someone's building a
Single
single
duplex.
duplex,
okay.
Okay, and I don't remember if it's exactly 20 feet. I remember we talked about like the length of this, like which size SUV or something, or, whatever it was.
I was just trying to think of, like, preventing one driveway getting too close to another one that's already existing, but I don't know if we can.
If it's not, yeah, if it's not middle housing, we
Yeah.
would look at it,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Like, oh, this is like plan modification, so we just made one. Pack page 33.
Okay.
So the new wording in here just made it more clear. That's what we're calling out for standards for the modification at the time it's submitted. So our current standard, it could be a little bit confusing if they come in for a modification and they got their site plan approval in 1984. Do we have to go back to this 1984 standard? Or can we use our current provisions? So we want to use our current provisions, so that's where we're at.
What about that?
Yeah,
Yes,
one,
because we shake our heads at it.
Let's see if I can push the clarity even further. So when I first read this, approval criteria and standards in effect at the time of the land use submittal apply to the modification request. I just wanted to make sure it didn't somehow read to the original still, original land use submittal. So I wonder if we could just say something like standards in effect at the time of the modification application apply to the modification request or something, just to make sure that this land use submittal language is clear that it's the second land use submittal, not the first land use.
The current one.
Yeah, something just to, even further clarify.
Okay, got it.
Just current land use submittal
Current land use
or
submittal.
modified land use submittal,
Mhm.
something like that.
Yep,
At the time of the current.
current.
Any submittal governed by this code, or something like that. Yes, you come up with something, pretty sure.
Okay, perfect.
Stop hearing it, stop hearing it.
The application, the modification application. So did you want to change your, on page 36, the plat code?
Yes, so we're gonna change that to the same
Same
language that's in
language,
the duty section. Oh, the partition chapter, so we just made the language in here all consistent. Basically, so. Like the adequate water service, adequate sanitary sewer.
So on the printout, it's underlined like it's new, but is it supposed to be lined through on C? C,
For, which one? See,
So what's new here is the applicant must demonstrate.
okay,
Everything that's underlined is new.
partitions shall not be improved unless the applicant demonstrates. So that you can read the sentence correctly. The beginning says partitions shall not be improved unless the applicant demonstrates. Okay, I got it. Just so that it reads. Yeah. Right, demonstrates adequate water sewer.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry. All right.
Oh.
Was that?
I just have, I don't know,
Yeah,
or maybe I need a 5-minute, like,
let's hear it, because
just why. Like, well, I mean, yeah, just like set the table, because I'm not sure I understand like what.
So, right now in our current code, we have the way that our current code reads, we have our general provisions. And then it goes right into our floodplain chapter, and then after the floodplain chapter, it goes into our like conformance standards. And so we didn't really know what do those conformance standards, where do they apply? Do they apply to the floodplain? Do they apply to all the other code sections after the floodplain chapter? So we moved those conformance standards up to the general provisions and explicitly called out that the standards in this chapter apply to all chapters within the environmental resources division, except for the floodplain overlay. Or any new uses or changes in commercial, industrial, institutional zones.
So the underlying language is just relocated?
Yes,
Okay.
so we just relocated those conformance standards to the general provision standards up front.
Yeah, it's
To
really
make-
just
Make it clear.
organizational, although I guess in theory, you know, when you reorganize it, it's clear that it applies to all these other areas as well.
So it says Division 8, Environmental Resources, correct? And then under applicability, standards of this chapter shall apply to all chapters in Division 7.
Yep, and we need to learn.
So it's Division 8, correct?
It's division 8.
Got it.
And then with that change, we.
And before we leave it, every other place in the code, it says the city manager or his/her designee. And then in this section, you have city manager or his or her. And that's not what the rest of the code says. The rest of the code says city manager or his/her
Okay,
Slash.
/hash. /hash.
we'll change that, that's what's all the same.
That shortens the code up too.
Fine, yes,
Hey,
any characters.
there
And then,
Okay, so then you're
Yep.
doing,
and then, so then we just moved code sections around, we updated, all the chapter and section numbers. And any code reference number within the sections were also updated. And,
This is about where I started doing that.
yeah,
at packet page 50 though,
back to page 50. Back to page 50.
J, last one.
Oh. Yep, 16.
Prior to the commission's action on a conditional use permit, the action shall be advertised as per chapters. The property shall be posted as to the proposed use for a period of 15 days. And then posting shall consist of all this other stuff. This is related specifically to mineral resources. And I just wondered why this one section had posting requirements, and were they in conflict with our regularly done posting requirements?
Good question. I don't know why. It's probably been there since the dawn of time.
Yeah, it's probably really old.
It probably is, but I think we should,
We can update it and take a look at that for sure.
because I can imagine that mineral resources and mining operations, when this code's probably been in place since the gravel pit was put in place next to the gun club, so there were probably a lot of heated discussions about gravel pits back in the 80s and 90s, so.
So if it's conditional use permit, it's gonna be a type 3, and it's probably,
It's more than
it's gonna
50
be
days. It's gonna
greater,
be-
our normal would be 20 days. And so our conditional use permit noticing requirement is going to be greater than the specific requirement. I think we're okay, but it's kind of odd to have this language in here.
We can make it consistent, I think, with one another.
Because they probably, when this was written,
We didn't
probably,
have the other stuff.
we didn't have the other
Totally. Now
dates.
we've sort of exceeded it, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then we're flipping back to. Oh. Got lost. Oh, page 54. I thought we updated our code with review procedures. That before accepting an application, didn't everything get changed to the city manager or his or her designee? And the planning director was taken out of all these other things in the rest of our code,
Yes, I think that all consistent.
just for consistency, the city manager became the go-to person. And I thought I was teasing Julie at the time.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Looking right, so are you looking past, do you have any more notes? Lost stuff inside. I think it's confusing because we're in the middle of solid waste.
Solid waste facilities.
Solid waste facilities have their own set of site improvement and design standards, which got me lost in a whole.
Which page is this?
I think 57 for site improvement for like setbacks, landscaping, and site design for,
See, and this says 20% of the facility landscape with living vegetation and appropriate medium such as yard debris compost. At least 20% of the facility shall be landscaped with living vegetation and appropriate medium such as yard debris compost.
sorry, what did you want?
Page 58.
58.
So I'm just wondering, I know we just did a whole bunch of numbering, I don't know if this is in conflict with our vegetation and tree canopy. And would it, I get it, it's a solid waste storage facility. So do they have different tree canopy requirements? I just leave it up to you guys to figure out if 20% landscaping is what?
Well, I would need to take a look at this whole thing. I think kind of where we're getting into
Now
some.
you're opening up a can of worms.
Yeah, we're getting,
So,
It's
so,
almost like fix it all or don't mess with it.
well.
yeah, and so that's the question.
Yeah.
That's the question. Do we fix any of this, or do we just acknowledge that there may be conflicts with all the other code work we've done because no one has looked at the environmental resources section, and we are now touching it because we're numbering it? And
We
we
can
should.
put that on our opportunities for next year. You go.
Yeah, and I would say just in terms of, I don't know what the right phrase is, low hanging fruit, bang for your buck in terms of, your guys' time, effort, energy.
And is someone gonna put a solid waste?
Like, I was just about to say that, Clayton, and where's the next solid waste facility going to
Yeah,
go?
it's not-
For safe
You put it out there in the
shelter.
universe.
Yeah,
I was gonna say,
totally.
Pride's gonna expand their facility and we're gonna say, oh, well, look, your code from 1980 is the one we're gonna run with because you haven't updated it.
This, I'll
We
just
have that, we have a modification with Pride just a couple of years ago, we were scratching our heads, like, we have to go back to like the conditional use from 1984.
And what-
You know, and
but-
we used our existing code standard, so I made that interpretation.
I would assume they wanna be a good partner with this. Okay, so that was, okay, if we wanna just head down ostrich it, then let me put an X through this and draw a little ostrich.
I don't know the phrase, what is it, what's the, I don't get it, what do you mean? Oh, ostrich.
Yeah,
Ostrich, I'm gonna put my head in the sand and ignore it.
Okay. thought it was a plan where it's ostracized or.
No, I'm gonna
Section.
draw my little ostrich's
Oh,
head
okay.
underneath the sand.
Yeah,
You know, it's not a bad idea that once in a while circle back on really old code and just kind of a working session.
Yeah.
Sort of reviewing. 'Cause I didn't have that in mind, I didn't do it. I just was looking at track changes.
Yeah.
And when I got to these things, I didn't reread all of it for, is this up to date in the last 20 years, you know?
You know
But we
what?
shoe do that periodically.
I was trapped at Les Schwab with a tire alignment, and this is what I had to read, so. My husband's out of town, I thought, well, shoot, I'll just take my planning commission packet and read it, and,
it's a great use of time in Schwab, I think.
yeah.
I think it's a good idea to put on the long range tracker. Let's take a look at this, the next 12, 18 months or something.
Yep.
Yep. Got it. I grew my little ostrich, going forward.
Only one eye still up.
Not cementing in. Okay, so. How we're going to subdivisions.
So we're moving on, where are we at?
I moved to page 66, that was my last question.
Okay.
Park reservation,
Oh, yes.
open space and park and recreation areas shown in the cities,
Cities, yep.
accepted concept areas which have not been dedicated may be required to be reserved on the recommendation of the city parks board and city council approval for purchase by the city within a period of time not to exceed 3 years. So can you explain what that is and under what circumstances is this triggered? Because don't they have to do park and open space dedications?
Yes, so within subdivisions are, and planning and developments are required to, set aside open space. This kind of, if there's like a certain area within the concept plan area that the city, or the developer would like the city to look at for parks preservation, they could come to the parks board and city council to ask if the city wanted to purchase that property.
So let's use Sherwood West as an example, because that's years out and not totally scary like it's on the docket for next week's hearing. We're dedicating park spaces in our minds.
Mhm.
When we go through, we're putting green blobs throughout the thing, just like we're putting blue for schools and red for commercial. So when that developer comes in, if their land is within an area that has a green blob on it, do they have to dedicate it? And is this saying that because it's in the concept plan, the city has 3 years to buy it, or they get to develop it to what they want? I guess I'm not understanding. First off, how do we ensure that we get the parks that we're putting in the concept plan? And is this the mechanism that assures it? And is that a 3-year caveat and then time's up and we don't get the open space dedication?
No, so typically, when a developer comes in, they have to set aside, so if a park is shown in the concept plan area, they could move that park area around a little bit where they want it to make it fit. And we, through the development process for planning and development or subdivision, they have to set aside, a certain amount of park area. Just trying to think. So if there is an area that is best for, I don't say best. It could be a park area within that concept planned area, yeah. that and it's not like dedicated to the city as part of that subdivision or Canadian unit development in that area. It could be if they went to the Parks Board and asked for that area to be like dedicated to the city for park development.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's anywhere.
And we haven't utilized this.
Well, and that's where I think we've had some fail points, because we have had areas that in the concept plan envisioned park spaces, and they haven't developed. You know, everybody pushed and kicked the can, and then at the end, we didn't have the envisioned park at the top of the hill because the concept, well, in that case, there was not an adopted concept plan, but you know, I guess, is this the only mechanism within our code that says when we concept plan something, it says which has not been dedicated pursuant to whatever those sections are, may be required to be reserved upon the recommendation of the city's park board and council approval. What does that mean? If the Parks Board doesn't review our applications before it comes to us, so,
And I guess,
I mean, is that the correct process? Because the City Parks Board, I wish I could use an example that wasn't right now, but let's pretend Sherwood West actually had an approved concept plan. When those individual applications were coming before the planning commission, if the top of the hill park had been on an approved concept plan, is this the mechanism that we would have been relying on? And under what circumstances would the planning commission, having seen the application, when would we have kicked it to the Parks Board? We don't have time in our 120 day to go wait for the next Parks Board meeting in a month to see if they want to get it dedicated. I'm just thinking,
Yeah.
we don't have a good mechanism, we don't have a plan, and we don't reserve our park spaces in a manner that is going to ensure the concept plan develops in the vision of the people that have been planning it.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Well, no, I mean, I guess maybe I'm not coming from a vantage point of knowing all the history, because this sort of sounds to me like you have a concept plan, it says you have to do the green blob over here. Sometimes you have a nexus to require it to be dedicated, sometimes you don't, but you still have to, you still have to show it as the green blob and you develop around it. Developer still holds it, maybe it goes to a HOA or something, but it's still an open space. I kind of was reading this to say that we may come in and say we're gonna buy it, because it talks about purchase by the city
Within 3 years.
within 3 years. So I guess I don't understand what, if that's not the instance, if it's not like that little pocket park's been held by the HOA of whatever forever, but we wanna come in and we wanna buy it because we wanna do stuff and we wanna improve it as a city. That's kind of how I was reading that, but I know that's not what it says, but I don't know if that's the instance, because I don't know where else,
Yeah, so I'm
I
getting,
don't know where else it would
So
apply.
my instance is, Southeast Sherwood is over there,
Murdoch.
off Murdoch Road. And it's zoned very low density, which is 1 unit per acre. And because of the Tonkin Scablands, there's a lot of rock underneath it. And at one time, the tannery was burying hides up there, so it became a DEQ brownfield area. So there were a lot of problems. And in order to make that area develop, there was a concept plan that was envisioned that preserved the top of the hill as a large community park. And then the development would occur around it. But in exchange for this community park, instead of 1 unit per acre, they were allowed 4 units per acre. And what got adopted by the council at that time was 4 units per acre and nothing else with the concept plan. So now they're building at 4 units per acre. And the park got eaten up by each person on the sides of it, and we didn't get a park. And what we ended up with was a pathway along the edge of the property overlooking Cedar Creek. And so that's a failure of
What council let that happen?
a long time ago things that happened, but all the neighbors in that whole area had gotten together. There had been this huge Southeast Sherwood master plan community, all the owners in that area came through in public meetings and all realized with the challenges of that area, there were going to be concessions, and concessions being 4 units per acre instead of 1, and create a park. And what happened was different than what had been envisioned. And so when I look at this, I think, I don't know, and I don't know if this,
Well, I
Like,
mean,
has the teeth. to
well,
sell it.
I mean, just going back to that example, the city, and this is still true from my understanding, the city's really not interested in most parks that developers could potentially dedicate to us. The city's just not interested, and that was the case for the example that you gave as well. We approached them for that one and actually for a forthcoming application to you guys, do you guys want a park as part of this last phase? And the answer from, management was no. So potentially we can go to the Parks Board and that would, get around, some of the management positions, but, just some detail here. So there is one standard in subdivisions. So it looks like maybe a little bit of overlap over the years. So this one's 16, when we're looking at 16.142050. Above that, just in the residential subdivision section for open space, 16.142030. Subsection E says if a residential subdivision contains or is adjacent to a site identified as parks on the acquisition map of the parks master plan, yada, 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 establishment of the open space shall occur in the designated areas of the subdivision. So we have the teeth there if it's in the parks master plan. But the parks master plan is gonna have to match the concept plans, and they're not always perfect. So it's a little bit different, but I think we have some good teeth here already in the code.
I just am fearful that when we come to Sherwood West and the development starts to occur there, we don't have something in place.
I know, and that really
We
should
need to
be-
update this because
this.
this does say Parks
That
Master
needs-
Plan 2006. So
That
we need to update.
that needs to be updated to actually the concept plan areas and not the parks master plan.
Yeah.
Because our parks master plan doesn't show any area.
Or, I mean, we could even just say.
It's our concept plan plans that show that
And or
future
Parks
park.
Master Plan and or applicable
Perfect.
concept plans.
What-
And then that's 16.142030E.
Because I guess going through all these public meetings, we all care about parks. We have a huge quality of life issue when it comes to creating and maintaining these quality of life things. And so I would be fearful if we don't have any mechanism that within our concept planning actually gets us a park. And how do we, your statement that the Parks Board doesn't want it or management doesn't want it, well,
So I should clarify.
not pocket parks, I don't want pocket parks.
Right, so Middlebrook is basically done, so we talk about it. So Middlebrook, we did get it right there. There's a big old green blob, middle of Middlebrook subdivision. We got it. I think the difference between this section and maybe this section here is that that it doesn't really tie in the city necessarily as the owner. So we got the concept plan park as part of Middlebrook. Probably not through this section because the city didn't take it, but the HOA manages it. So we still got it as part of the concept plan and the HOA is managing it. I think Commissioner Montalvo, your comment's probably right about, does the city really want to take the initiative here and reserve the right to actually own and develop a city park as opposed to a open space maintained by the HOA. Slightly different, but I agree on everything else you said around timing and all that sort of stuff. It's gonna be a challenge to implement that.
Okay, so those are my concerns. How do you fix it? And make it work, that's what I'm. I.
Yep.
And if it's a two-phase process, which is, we, do a little bit now, but we definitely, before Sherwood West comes in, there are community members that are gonna be thoroughly disappointed if there aren't parks over there.
Oh, there will be,
Oh, yeah,
there will be.
Alright,
okay.
moving on to, I had no other comments. This is probably when I started.
I wanna say the next kind of like substantive change in here, and this is more recently, is on the street tree list.
Yeah,
The recommend, yeah, we took out the ash tree because of the recent emerald ash borer problem.
There's like 2,000 orange.
okay.
And it sounds like it can be added back once it's cleared.
Yes.
Because we did the trees 2 years ago and took out plum trees, because those used to be a street tree, and they are a disaster.
There are the sweet elms that are everywhere.
So,
The sweet elm trees.
What's that? The,
Well, it's just they destroy the sidewalks, the curb and everything. Planting.
yeah.
okay. Are we on to item number 2 here, the SWOT analysis? I think we can get this done in short amount of time. This is from last year.
We're just signing off on updating the date.
Yes, and
That was-
There's a few things we can take off.
I think we need to add the
Yeah.
the online map with the project as a weakness. We need to, we don't have it, we can't control it, so maybe,
Oh, yeah.
But that brings up a question I have. Is this for the planning commission or planning commission and staff that we're doing here?
So I think this SWOT analysis is threefold. I think it's for the planning commission, staff, and for city council.
Maybe who's like who the audience is, or who are we
Who-
swatting?
Who's the SWAT?
Who are we swatting here?
Planning commission.
well, our weakness isn't the project, the map online.
The second,
Well, it could be, I think the weakness still could be, our department.
The weakness is the communication opportunities to the citizens with inadequate online resources.
I agree with that. Probably wordsmith it a little bit.
Yeah.
The second bullet point, I think we can take away on weaknesses, we just knocked out a training.
In fact, I was just gonna suggest we have the strengths if we don't have training. Maybe it's not recurring, but
We have a third.
No, we want it to be recurring.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Back up, there's one.
And one vacancy on commission.
Yeah.
We're consistent. Is that a strength now?
I,
On opportunities, I did add, to the comments earlier about revisiting the environmental resources code or whatever that section was. Just that's an opportunity just to have it on the radar.
revisiting the dated code. Did your example?
Well, I was more specific, so I think,
Yes.
I think it's the same.
Sorry, I think I was thinking.
and other
That makes sense.
outdated code.
Yep. Hey, let's talk about your significant accomplishments this past year as a commission. What do you feel have,
Well, we can't do no appeals to council or LUBA anymore, so scratch that off. How about,
Did anything get to Luba?
yep, yeah,
But
the
Clause appeals. We
clause.
have two land use,
Oh, yeah,
So-
that's right.
Langer clause.
Yeah, our decisions to Langer were appealed to council, council upheld our decision, and the council's decision
That's
is
right.
being upheld.
Yeah,
what is the accomplishment that the council upheld yours?
Yeah.
Council, council upheld
Because
ours.
sometimes councils and commissions can.
yeah, it's reaffirming.
Yeah. Yeah. Is calendar year, or is it July to July, or?
I don't know, I have no idea, it's
If you
more,
look at the residential design standards, is that-
That was this year?
yeah. In-person meetings. Maybe. Goals, Sherwood West concept plan is coming up for sure. Updating the TSP is probably,
Yes, it is.
and Phil commission. See. Wish it were just one page.
We. Probably.
It's all fun.
No, I don't, yeah. Get rid of it. Are they gonna
I think
have-
it'll fit on it'll fit on one page. We got rid of like some weaknesses here.
Isn't there something else from the state that's crippling us a little bit beyond the 2001 bill that we're gonna
See that.
Yeah, so shouldn't that be on the threat list or?
Yeah, that's, see that, good. And we're.
Well, I guess it's the state in general, but I just looked at the House bill.
Yeah, I think we could switch House Bill 2001 to climate friendly equitable.
Or any other random executive order that chooses to take our self-governance away from us.
Any, well, how can I say this right, since we are on broadcast?
I'm unfiltered.
But I'm just saying, I don't know if it falls under threats, but sometimes Metro overreaches a little bit too as well, so beyond the state, but
Yeah, that could be a threat, we come through Sherwood West if they are forcing us to do densities outside of our comfort zone.
Sure, it has to be part of Metro, right? It's not our
Yes.
choice. Is that constitutional, state constitution driven? Who decides this? Are we part of Metro?
Good question, actually, I never really got that one. I think it's probably determined by Metro and the state when Metro was formed, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's gonna be state law around Metro, yeah.
Because they took care of our trash.
It was the unified, yeah, it was back when, before it was called Metro, it was like the unified agency for like just trash disposal and something else.
I don't know.
It was.
How did that mutate into Metro?
Because it's government.
Because they,
But it was, primarily the services that they were providing at the time, and they.
Yeah.
Apparently unfiltered too.
Reminds me of your credit unions, going from, employee things to.
Oh,
credit
yeah,
unions.
it's probably better, yeah. Kind of evolved.
All right.
I don't want to ignore our one visitor. Did you have anything? We have your letter that you brought. I just, we're all getting ready to leave. I just want to know if you had any insider input.
No, I'm just interested in what you're dealing with, and I do appreciate your comments on the concept plan. And I've had 10 years of frustration of, well, it's conceptually here. And then, of course, as you commented on the hillside tops, that it just kind of gets little bite here, and a little bite here, and a little bite here, and all of a sudden, the concept is gone.
We do have a vacancy on the planning commission, so.
I already have about 6
You did already, come on.
You guys work too hard.
Empty chairs.
Put his name on the, how to provide testimony as a docent, a volunteer docent.
There's some new mailers.
I tried to be effective.
All right, any other announcements or commissioner comments before we adjourn? Staff,
You said there's no other meeting this month?
Another meeting this month?
really? Wow, that's like a bonus month.
That was not light after a brutal first half of the year.
Oh,
Thanksgiving.
Oh, man, it was bad. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm used to, city council being here on election night. It's unusual for planning to be here on election night.
They changed it a
On
couple,
purpose.
3 years ago because of that. PC canceled on the 22nd. All right, I just put it on my calendar so I can.
We're non-elected, so
Oh,
not
yeah,
important to us.
yeah.
They've got races to watch, parties to go to tonight.
This is such a,
Well, I don't think there's much of a context, sure.
So our next meeting then could possibly be December 13th. And that might be a work session, and then I might do an update on the Sherwood West concept plan reload project and where we're at. As we head into the new year with that plan, and then maybe touch back maybe on a couple, any final exhibits.
so is the open house for Sherwood West closed?
It is,
Okay, and
it
so,
is.
well, hopefully, when's our next Sherwood West meeting?
Next week, the 17th.
You know what? I remember deleting the office.
EOA.
That's
No, what, too many meetings.
Sherwood West.
Sure, no, we're doing the EOA update, we're doing the
Yes.
Sherwood West, I'm just like, my brain is like, too many meetings.
Okay, so Sherwood West is the 17th.
That's right, we have another meeting this month, don't we?
No, that's what you just said.
No,
No.
we do on the EOA.
Oh,
Geez analysis, I got sucked into.
I was thinking we, not we. But I'm on Sherwood West, so it'll be we this way, not we this way. And it's 5:30, 17th here,
Correct.
okay. And you'll have the results from the public survey?
Yes, so the results from the public survey are actually going out into the packet. And the packet will go live tomorrow evening.
So do you know how many people got online and did it at this point approximately?
Approximately a little over 100 people.
So disappointing. That's so disappointing.
But we had a really great turnout at our open house. as well.
There's 13,
This is huge.
19,000 people.
It's huge.
It's
I
huge.
did. If you told me about it, I
Okay,
almost missed it, but I did.
1,900 acres. All right,
1,200.
1,200 acres
Roughly.
coming into our city, and 100 people cared enough to say, hey, I think we should make it all industrial flatland with belching
So.
smokestacks.
Let me tell you, that's not what they said.
I know it's not.
We want coal mines everywhere.
But, yes, probably.
Yeah.
You wanna cancel the live feed now, the meeting's adjourned.
Yes.
We've gone off the rails, all right?
Yeah.